Welcome back. You're watching NewsX. My name is Vineet Malhotra. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this special marathon telecast where we speak to all of you. We have been told by our friends at the Oxford Union that there is a raging debate about independence of Kashmir. Yes, you heard that right. I'm going to first read out this Instagram post that was put by the Oxford Union. It reads, and I quote, "The Kashmir question, a parting gift of British colonial rule, has troubled the subcontinent since 1947, resulting in multiple wars. The continued push for Kashmiri independence has sustained a long-standing struggle rooted in the region's quest for self-determination and autonomy. This has led to a persistent unrest, human rights concerns, and renewed demands for autonomy amongst the Kashmiris. While nuclear-armed neighbors vie for control and geopolitical influence, the desire for peace among the population remains strong. Could an independent Kashmir be the answer to this enduring crisis?" This is, of course, about Kashmir, a place that recently witnessed successful and peaceful elections. The intention behind this event is clear: to build a narrative that is false, but also to needle us because, of course, someone sitting in Oxford obviously knows better about what's happening in Kashmir. Now, without further delay, I'm going to put on your screen a map. A map we here have made on NewsX. This, friends, is the real map of the United Kingdom as it should be. On the top of your screens is Scotland. Let's call it British occupied Scotland. The Home Rule movement, first taken up in 1853 by the National Association for the Vindication of Scottish Rights, was the birth of the Scottish independence movement. So why not invite members of the Scottish National Party to educate us and debate about Free Scotland? On the left of your screens is obviously the Republic of Ireland, and above it is English occupied Northern Ireland. The Government of Ireland Act 1920 led to the division of Ireland and hence created Northern Ireland. Since then, when the first Battle of Belfast was fought, until now, over 100 have been massacred. And there have been massacres like the Bloody Sunday, where British soldiers shot at 26 unarmed civilian Irish protesters. If you look a bit to the left bottom of your screens, since there is no large-scale independence movement in Wales, let's call this British-ruled Wales, or BRW, and invite Wales Green Party and supporters of Welsh freedom to Delhi for a debate. If Oxford feels the need to have a debate on Kashmir independence, maybe it's time we lead debates on Irish reunification, Scottish independence and Welsh independence as well. Join us in our campaign and call us on the number flashing below on your screens, 011 6163 2112, and share your views. We'll talk about this on this very important program with our guest. Ambassador Bhaspati Mukherjee, former diplomat, is joining us. Sumit Peer, political commentator, with us on the show as well. Professor Madhav Nalapat, editorial director of the Sunday Guardian, also joins us on the program. Dr. Sharat Kohli, senior economist. Adit Kothari, founder of the Indic Society, and Major General Sudhakarji, defense expert, with us on the program as well. Thank you everyone for being a part of this conversation. Sumit, I'll begin with you. Well, isn't this a classic case of Begani Shadi Mein Abdullah Diwana? Isn't this a classic case of needling an issue which really does not want your attention? It perhaps wants your understanding more than your attention. What do you make of this double standards which have just been put up in Oxford University, something they've done in the past as well?
Vinny, thank you for having me on your show. What we call it is the running with the hare and hunting with the hounds. First of all, the British still have this imperialistic hangover where they thought the sun doesn't set in British Empire, and whatever they say, that is a rule of the game. Still, the facade of Commonwealth exists, which should be disbanded. And second thing is that the most important thing is that Oxford has become a hotbed of jihadis and separatists. Look, this so-called student leader who organized this is believed to be a Pakistani origin, and the Pakistani origin and ISI agent does exactly what you expect him or her to do. Now, starting up the Kashmir debate and independence of Kashmir is they're trying to keep the ghost of Kashmir separatism on, while we had a very successful election there. The question here is, if we can debate and talk about Kashmir, why not about Wales? Why not about all the provinces of the England which we were just mentioning about? Let's have a debate in the Delhi University about them. Let's have a debate on NewsX. We started the debate on the NewsX on that. And this is a classical example why India needs to get out of this Commonwealth thing. The answer to that we should get away with this Commonwealth legacy and Commonwealth things. Today, it's a fact we're discussing with our friend here before the show that how many constituencies are today determined by the Muslim vote? A lot of them. The Keir Starmer's parties in power because of the Muslim vote, because of they believe in Muslim vote and keeping Pakistanis happy. Is it wrong that this mayor of London said immigrants are welcome? Is it wrong that he said that we are going to spend these many £1,000,000 on houses for immigrants? Is it wrong that the mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, said these many £1,000,000 will be spent on the houses on Muslims because unfortunately poor Muslims in UK cannot afford a house. So if you have to do Islamization of UK, if you have to do Islamization of England, do it thoda khulla khul ke na, do it call the Sharia law, do it very openly. Why doing this nitpick diplomacy here and there? Why are you making Kashmir a dartboard for settling your games? If ISI wants to rule, UK, let them rule. If Sadiq Khan wants to be the next Prime Minister of UK and make it a Sharia country, let him make it. We have no problem. But why are you bringing in Kashmir? The thing is that everything in UK is, gone to literally dogs, Sunit. Nobody controls anything. Pakistanis and all are having an open say. You look at the mayor of London, what kind of a bigot he is. And that is the biggest track record and achievement of Sadiq Khan. Today, look at the crime of London, look at the bombings of London, look at how unsafe London has become. And let us not forget, all Ali Babas and all Charlie Shores of the world end up in London only, by the way. ये उसकी एक खसूसियत है. That is a, cherry on the cake. With all these things happening, the point of Kashmir is only one. That is, when will we get POK? When are we going to take out POK? That is all what is open about Kashmir. Else is gone and dusted. And it is nobody's business to poke their nose in there, because if we start watching dirty linen in the public, there are a hell lot of things which we can do. And trust me, our media and our population and our reach is much bigger than tinny mini UK, what it is left with. So if the imperialistic hangover is still here, that the sun doesn't set in the British Empire, I would say smell up sasti coffee and just get going. That is the only thing I would say to them.
Professor Nalapat, isn't it offensive taking up the issue of Kashmir when I've also read out in my opening monologue that we've just had successful elections over there? Why aren't they having debates on POK? Why aren't they having debates of what's happening to the Hindus in Bangladesh? Why aren't they having debates in Oxford to what's happening to the Uyghur Muslims in China?
Well, the answer to that is obviously that many of the students there don't want to have these debates. And may I point out, Vineet, that I am surprised that anyone is taking the Oxford Union seriously. We all recall on 9 February 1933, they had a debate called For King and Country. And the resolution was that we are not willing to fight for king and country. Remember, this is just a few weeks before Hitler came to power. King, and the overwhelming vote, 275 if I remember, versus 153 against, was that we are not going to fight for king and country. That had a big impact on Adolf Hitler. That had a huge impact on him and convinced him the British establishment will just not fight. He had a very high regard for the power of the British establishment, a very high regard for the influence of the Oxford University on the British establishment, and he said, look at this, we are not going to fight for king and country. The Oxford Union has passed a resolution like that. So, very frankly, the Oxford Union passes resolutions that are getting more and more ridiculous and more absurd. And less people are taking the Oxford Union seriously. So, frankly, I agree with Sumit that perhaps an Indian university should get into a debate on is it a disunited kingdom or a united kingdom, and invite Welsh nationalists, Scottish nationalists, Irish nationalists, and let them all say, because we all know what happened during Brexit. Brexit was entirely because of the English vote. The Scots didn't like it, the Welsh didn't like it, the Irish didn't like it, the English liked it, and they voted for Brexit. And after that, Britain has been, frankly, the other regions have just not been cooperating with the British, and the European Union also put multiple obstacles in the way of Britain And as a consequence, there is a strong feeling that perhaps this was a mistake. The way it was implemented was certainly a mistake. Boris Johnson, frankly, quintessential Englishman, if I may say so. He's nothing to do with Wales or Scotland or Ireland. And when he was a journalist in that period, he wrote column after column attacking attacking, quite frankly, the European countries, attacking them very badly. But the fact of the matter is that this is the same Oxford Union that passed a resolution in 1933, I think on the eve of Hitler's coming to power, that we are not ready to fight for king and country. And for a long time that was true, until by some accident Churchill became the Prime Minister and things changed. Had Churchill not been the Prime Minister, quite frankly, Britain would have done exactly what Hitler expected to do. From 1933 onwards, it is just not fight. It didn't fight when Germany reoccupied the Rhineland, when Germany occupied Austria, and when Germany took over Czechoslovakia. The English the Prime Minister of Britain and the Prime Minister of France were falling over each other to say, please go ahead. And Chamberlain relied on a ridiculous document that Hitler had no intention of taking seriously. We all know that, there is a certain country, there are some countries who sign anything without meaning to keep anything. And quite frankly, Hitler broke it by marching into Poland, and there was the war was declared. And for a long time, until the French were invaded, Netherlands was invaded, only then did they wake up to the fact that yes, this is a guy who is going to fight, and he's fighting because he believes we won't fight. And frankly, the French did not fight very much. The British, fortunately, Hitler invaded Russia, and fortunately Roosevelt was the president, so he ensured massive assistance to Russia and to Britain once the Japanese made the mistake of invading Pearl Harbor in 1941. And from then on, as far as Hitler was concerned, the war was lost. The attack on Russia from that time onwards, and once the Americans entered the war thanks to Pearl Harbor, the war was lost. But as far as Britain is concerned, the British establishment is concerned, the English establishment, quite frankly, they were exactly what the Oxford Union, hinted that they would be, absolutely unwilling to fight even for their own freedom and security. Thank you, Vinny.
Absolutely right, sir. And Dr. Kohli, well, when do you think you and I can get together and bring in some intellectuals also from Scotland and Wales and talk about the independence of these areas, which the world seems to have forgotten are occupied, by the British. They find it very, very convenient to call themselves as the custodians of liberal democracies and pick up topics which they have no inkling or understanding of. Should we return this favor in kind? Because obviously, if you go through diplomacy and if you go through other channels, we are never going to let them get a taste of their own medicine.
Well, good evening, Vineet. Good evening to my fellow panelists and NewsX viewers. I think I'm totally for bringing the guys from there and, let's have the first debate on NewsX itself. Welcome to Oxfordia Islamia University. Here's the new name I would give to this university. And I'm sorry to say that because this was one university we were proud of. In fact, the world was proud of. If you had somebody educated from Oxford, you'll probably feel this guy is an intellectual. But I think they are totally bankrupt as far as intellect is concerned now. They've got nothing better to talk about. I would have been happier if Oxford was talking about the global employment problem. I would have been happier if the Oxford was talking about the global financial crisis, global economy, how to raise the global south, and so and so, and probably climate change and so and so. If Oxford has got this mindset of discussing how Kashmir should be free or should it be free or should it not be free as a separatism, I think this only shows bankruptcy of their intellectual prowess, which Oxford used to have. And this also spells out, Vineet, the economic condition of the UK, because there's nothing left in the UK, honestly. And I'm sorry to say this. The guys who once ruled the world, and as Sumit said, the sun never used to set for the UK. I think the sun has set for themselves forever. Forget about rest of the world now. They do not have any sunrise to see. The GDP is down, the employment is down. You can see beggars on the street of a country which created beggars around the world. They're tasting their own medicine. And people who live in glass houses should not throw stones at others. I'm totally for it. In fact, I never initiate a request for debate. But here is one request I would make. If you ever do this debate on Ireland, on Scotland, on Wales, please do include me in the panel, because I have a lot to speak about how the Irish people have been surviving and fighting for their identity, how the Scotland doesn't want to believe in the British Parliament, and how Wales has literally been tortured over decades now. I would be very happy to debate that. I think I'm totally for it. As far as Kashmir is concerned, it's none of their business. Kashmir is after Article 370, after 35A, Kashmir is a different place. It's part and parcel of India. It is as good a state as any other state in India. I think they have to be learning that. Simply by debating, they are not going to get anything out of it, except for some silly votes which they will gather out of the Muslims who probably migrated there illegally, or people who've settled there, who've been allowed asylum in that country. It's all about politics. I call it this as a Trudeau 2.0, because this is what Trudeau is doing to the Khalistani separatists. This is what is happening in the Canadian Parliament, that for the sake of a few votes, he's harboring terrorists over there, the Khalistani terrorists. And the same thing is going to happen to the UK. I think UK as a country is going to regret what it is doing today. The days of the United Kingdom, forget about the Oxford, are numbered. They are going to spell doom for themselves, economically, ethically, and in every regard for that matter. So I agree with Professor Nalapat. I think we care a damn about what they discuss. I don't think we should take it seriously. But yes, as far as the discussion is concerned, to raise the voices around the world, and I can tell you with conviction, Vineet, that a debate done in India at this point of time will carry far more weight than a debate done in Oxford University. Vineet.
All right, that's a fair point, and I can also sense the emotion with which you have in fact articulated that. General Sudhakar ji, how do you look at this situation? Kashmir is our integral part. Kashmir is our problem. It's like a child that has not gone rogue, but there have been problems. Just because it's a problem that somebody else has heard of and knows doesn't really mean they have the authority or even the prerogative to discuss about it.
Vineet, good evening. Thank you for getting me to your show. Compliments to the very distinguished and esteemed co-panelists. And firstly, allow me to just give a little primer on the canvas. This discussion in Oxford, to my mind, is taking place in 21st century. There may have been many prior to this, but in the backdrop of what is happening in Pakistan, how Pakistan's outreach or a semblance of a nation state in Canada is just about emerging, how Canada is turning out to be a failed state, and also the irrelevance of the Five Eye countries. Those Five Eye countries, essentially, they are looking for some opportunity to survive. When I say this, also allow me to say that in 21st century, the geopolitics of world order is not the same as it used to be there in 20th century. The dynamics have changed. And the factors which are the primary driving factors which are driving geopolitics leading to disintegration of USSR in 20th century have undergone change. They have gravitated towards geoeconomics. When you talk about geoeconomics, just take the mind of our viewers back to 1995, although BRICS hadn't come into existence then. But put the sum total of the GDP of all the 5 countries, the GDP of BRICS countries in 1995 was 16.06% of the total GDP of the world. G7 at that point in time, this is in PPP terms, G7 countries used to post around 43.04% of the global GDP. 15 years later, in the year 2010, the GDP of this BRICS, these 5 countries, has gone up to close to 26.06%, whereas the G7 country GDP had come down from 43.04 or whatever to almost close to 30% or less, between 35 and 37%. Now in 2024, when you take the BRICS 5, the founding members, and the 5 members who have been added, and the 13 who are just coming in, that also has not been added, I suppose. The GDP of these 5 plus 5, 10 countries is crossing 37.05%. In many literature here and there in open domain, you will find them between 35 to 37. So why am I stating this? I'm stating this that the global order, which was based on a transatlantic relationship, mindful of the fact that the superpower is a declining power and the transatlantic relationship is falling apart, all the existing architecture of all organizations and the rules-based international order is also been found deficient. They have realized that it is the Asia century. In Asia, India is the brightest spot. So therefore, when you talk about the GDP of UK or any member state of G7, they are on a declining mode and they cannot they cannot bounce back at any cost. Out of 4 or 5 countries, as per the PPP terms, top countries I'm talking of in global order today, you have 4 countries belonging to Asia. There is only 1 country in the transatlantic relationship, that is USA. The threat in 20th century was different. The threat in 21st century is different. What is the threat? The threat is no longer Russia invading Europe with tanks and missiles. The threat to Europe today are the boat people migrating from Middle East and Northwest Africa. And because of this migration into Europe, the bigger threat in Europe today and also America to large an extent is the demographic swap which is taking place. It is just to keep themselves relevant. Way back in 2014, I was in UK giving a presentation to the Chief of Defence Staff. And during that time, there was a huge secession movement by the Scotland people. When I asked a question that out of 298 nuclear missiles that UK has, 292 are deployed in Scotland and only 6 belong to UK. They are in the geographical jurisdiction of UK. How is UK going to resolve this mismatch when you consolidate? Are you going to shift the silos from Scotland to this place? You know, the Scotland, the UK Chief of Defence Staff, what he did, he stood up before the lecture could finish. He gave a standing ovation and said, this perhaps is a question by some Indian officer, Indian Army officer. Nobody else in the world would have so much of detail. So that is the kind of weight. You talk about the natural resources, talk about the revenue, major share of revenue of UK is being earned from countries like Scotland. So that is the fear of existence, that is the apprehension which the UK people are having. Oxford is nothing but an extension of the very culture.
Right,
today, the threat
let me also open Adit into this conversation. Adit, some stellar opinions and perspectives have been shared so far in this conversation. We've let's put things into perspective as well. Look at what's happening in Europe. Look at the economy. Look at Germany. Look at some of the other countries, in fact, who are on the anvil of the danger mark when it comes to economy. Look at the immigration crisis in Europe, and look at what UK has done as a result of Brexit. Should these be really concerns? And look at the unemployment rates in the United Kingdom at this point in time. Indian students themselves are returning in droves because of not finding opportunities in England. And they have spent lakhs and crores of rupees, taken loans and gone on to study over there, but they're coming back to get employed gainfully in India. Aren't there other more fruitful topics that the Oxford University Students' Union can perhaps come up with that actually propel their agenda or propel some thought-provoking ideas for their economy to get bolstered?
Vineet, you're expecting thought-provoking ideas from the social sciences divisions and departments which are problematic globally. Social sciences departments in universities, just not in the West, but including India. I come from Calcutta, and you look at the Jadavpur University there, you look at, JNU in Delhi, where the Tukde gang basically erupted from. They are a problematic lot because they sort of harp on selective information, and they use that selective information to drive up, false narratives. And that is what the social sciences departments are pretty much popular for. I mean, if you look at the debate that was held yesterday, they're talking about the independence of Kashmir. So Kashmir in silos, they're basically dehyphenating Jammu, they're dehyphenating Ladakh, they're dehyphenating Gilgit from the area of Kashmir. So they're looking at it from a very sort of a Muslim majoritarian kind of a concept. Because they know for very well that if they include Jammu and Ladakh are already, pretty much pro-India. So, from a narrative perspective, they will never be able to build a pro-independence narrative from that perspective. Ibrahim Osman Muafi, who is the current president of the Oxford Union, he's of an Egyptian background. The person who's supposed to take over the reins from him next year is this gentleman called Israr Khan, who's of Pakistani origin. So, there goes, where the problem is. The Oxford Union is basically being hijacked by the Islamists, and they're basically pushing in their narrative in whatever way they can. And that is where the problem lies. And the problem that we see from our perspective is not about the debating of the contentious issues. You can very well debate on contentious issues. It's about the narrative that you want to bring in, and your free speech needs to end where terrorism starts. That is where the contention is. By platforming in, people like Muzammil Ayub Thakur and Professor Zafar Khan, who are known people connected to JKLF, which is a proscribed terrorist organization, that is where the problem lies. So you are basically legitimizing terrorism, you're legitimizing radical Islamism on the podium, on the platform of Oxford University, and that is problematic. So this is a playbook taken straight from the American universities, which are engineering these, anti-Israel propaganda by advocating pro-Hamas narratives, and that needs to be called out.
Sumit Peer, there is obviously a tilt in the world that's happening right now. For the lack of a better word, I would say Canada is going through a Khalistanization. Europe is going through Islamization, and this seems to be stemming from this ultra uber liberal philosophy of letting people practice what they preach. But what is not understood here by a lot of these pseudo intellectuals sitting on their thrones high above the pyramid is that some of these people are preaching hatred.
Vineet, you have brought, I think, a very good and a pertinent question. Look, let me give you some facts. The first and the most important thing is that we, as a civilized society of the world, are stupid, sorry to use this word, when we are trying to be politically correct. Our political correctness is their biggest weapon, against us, and they use it against us. Look, up 3 days back, there was 57 Islamic countries. They met in Riyadh on 48 hours notice to discuss what? Genocide, alleged genocide in Gaza and Lebanon. But all these 57 countries, Pure United Colors of Benetton, everybody was there. They never talked about Hezbollah, they never talked about Hamas, they never talked about Islamic Jihad, they never talked about Islamic resistance, they never talked about the slaughtering of the Jews, they never talked about how did Yahya Sinwar get $500 million approved from Khamenei to carry this massacre. They never talked about this. In a way, they said Israel is responsible for it, and it's Americans who are backing it is responsible for it. When these adhivations or Sammelans had, we turn a blind eye to them. We say it's a OIC meeting, but what is common between these people? 90% of these 57 countries have nothing to do with Israel. Most of their people have never seen or visited Israel, but one thing that is common between them is Islam. When it comes to Islam, they will all get in a room and show you their power. They release you a joint statement or a picture showing you their power. The problem is that the non-Islamic world doesn't understand it, and the liberals of the world, along with deep state, along with some sold outs, are trying to dismantle the civilizations. It's a clash between, Islamic civilization, non-Islamic civilization. When it comes to Hamas and Hezbollah, Jews are the number one target. Then are Christians, then are Hindus. You're all on the list. I'll be very candid and direct. You are all on the list. It's only my priority number one is this. Now, Islamization of Europe is the biggest problem they're having. Look at the France and left wing, these governments coming into power, like it in UK, like it in France. You see, Macron is today talking a different language. Keir Starmer is in power because of this left leaning things. Now, legalizing Muslim immigration, letting Muslims go at special status, having hundreds and thousands of these illegal aliens come in, then giving them passports and giving them the voting rights. This is what has happened. The mandate in United States was against this, but thankfully it was against this. But if you look at Europe, it is not the economy, it is not anything else. If they don't stop this rapid Islamization, 8 to 10% Muslims in France can bring France and the Christians on their knees. In fact, the rabbi of France says with 90% Christians, it's not safe for 1% Jews to live in France. Leave France. That is the plight of situation. If you go to Amsterdam, the people who were watching, the Jews who were watching a football match got beaten up by jihadis. And IDF had to send a plane and were saying we'll go there and rescue the people in Netherlands. Now what is happening in Oxford? Again, the same story is ending up. One Pakistani, one Egyptian put together. And what is the most antagonizing part? I didn't want to bring it up, but I'm bringing it now up. You know what they're saying in this discussion? The genocide of Hindus in Kashmir never happened. Hindus were never shunted out of their house. The rapes and murder of Hindus never happened. It is all propaganda of the Indian government that the Hindus were persecuted there. All the atrocities done against Hindus is a figment of imagination. This never happened, and it is our government who is creating this propaganda and trying to defame the Pakistan.
So, hold on to that thought. We have a caller. In fact, Rubinder is giving us a call from Bengaluru. Let's listen to what he has to say. Rubinder, go on.
Yeah, Ravindra.
Go on, Ravindra. Speak now, please.
Choose sometime or the other. So we should take the battle to the other side and question what you are mentioning about the real map of United Kingdom. And not only United Kingdom, if it is the US, we should talk about the original 13 states, and the rest is all occupied. Similarly, Australia and New Zealand. And even if China talks about our Arunachal and Ladakh, we should talk about how they have occupied Xinjiang, Tibet, Yunnan, Manchuria, Inner Mongolia. We should take the battle to the other side. We should not be defensive. Thank you.
All right. Professor Nalapat, let's also talk about Europe now. Countries like France, Germany and the United Kingdom, they obviously, have had issues dealing with this immigration population. They have writings in the past few months when it comes to immigration issues. You have a new president, a president like Donald Trump in the United States because of immigration issues. That is in fact, a far cry from the problems that are being faced in Kashmir, and everybody knows that the problems that are being faced in Kashmir are a result of one country and one country alone, and that is their own Islamic agenda that is resulting in these problems. Shouldn't they be more wary about what's happened in Kashmir and perhaps apply, the same prudence and wisdom to make immigration laws and policies in their own country rather than targeting India over Kashmir?
Vineet, let's look at the context. We are seeing a situation where in Bangladesh, the Hindu population is rapidly declining, and that decline is now accelerating. And what many people call a genocide of Hindus is taking place there. Who's talking about it? No one. Kashmiri Pandits. I was a witness during that period to the torture they were going through. So I know it firsthand what they were going through. And it was, indescribable. Frankly, I wish I had never seen some of the people I saw who had been attacked and traumatized, and the stories they told me, and whatever I saw on the streets. I wish, because it is terrifying to this day. So, Vineet, these people basically, for them, the Bangladesh today is a model. Pakistan is a model. Pakistan was created on the belief that Hindus and Muslims are not separate nations. Tomorrow there will arise a movement in the UK or Canada, I think, very likely, that Christians and Muslims are not the same people and we should have a separate state. This separating on the basis of religion, it was the foundation of Pakistan and a very pernicious doctrine, a doctrine of division and hate. So, I mean, frankly, I'm surprised any of us are surprised about what is happening. There's no reason to be. As far as the Oxford Union is concerned, frankly, it's become somewhat of a joke. It's become something that one really doesn't take seriously, and I hope that that is a situation with people in what we call possibly the disunited kingdom, but let's call it let's call it for reasons of propriety, the United Kingdom. So frankly, Vineet, the fact of the matter is Kashmir became a part of India not recently, but in 1947. And the reality is that our leaders for a very long time, until Article 377 was basically removed, frankly, our leaders refused to accept that Kashmir was the same kind of state that other states were, and actually it was. And then there was an attempt to separate Kashmir from the rest of India on the ground of religion, which is frankly something that is completely, off base. It's irrational, and it reflects a certain degree of religious prejudice that is frankly hateful, or should be hateful in a modern society. So, Vineet, I would like to say that I'm not surprised by what happened in the Oxford Union. I think, and frankly, that whatever the Oxford Union, whatever little respect it has, a lot of that has been chipped away by debates like this. And it's good that some of the speakers from India decided to keep away from that, because it was basically a show trial. The jury had reached the verdict. The verdict was exactly what those who were invited wanted it to be. So it was a show trial, and that kind of show trial is not something that any civilized human being would like to participate in. So I would only like to say one point, Vineet. Yes, we are talking about Pakistan, we are talking about Bangladesh. There is one factor behind that. And you recall I've been writing for quite some years about the Sino-Wahhabi lobby, about the authoritarian state and the religious supremacist state, the party supremacist state and the religious supremacist state getting together. I've been saying this from the 1990s,
right, sir,
including the United States. And this is what we are witnessing now. And frankly, it's something that where there needs to be a fight back. Donald Trump has indicated that there is such a fight back. What is happening now? The justice system was weaponized against him. Justice system is weaponized against Marine Le Pen. It's being weaponized against such people. But the more you persecuted Donald Trump, the more popular he became.
Stronger he got.
The more you persecuted, Marine Le Pen, the more popular she is going to become.
Sir,
there is a reaction.
You're absolutely right, sir. But we have a caller, sir, from Bangalore. Mahesh is giving us a call.
Minute, if you allow me to complete what I wanted to say.
Just 1 second, sir. We have a caller from Bangalore. Okay, that call's gone. All right. General Sudhakar ji, go on, sir.
No, I'll give chance to Sumit. I think he deserves.
Sir, I'll come back to Sumit, sir. Let me anchor this show.
Okay, let me complete my whatever things I was explaining. You see, all these things are happening as per a strategy. What is that strategy? None of the Indians are in a position today to understand this strategy. This is called a 6G. When you talk about 6G warfare, which has been unleashed, and I'm very thankful to Professor Nalapat for having carried my article in the Sunday Guardian, as also it come out in a couple of newspapers. This is 6G is not 3G, 4G, 5G, or optical fiber or those kind of electromagnetic waves. Yes, it is one of the components. The speed of the passages of these waves is become faster, 100 times faster. But that is not the issue. The NATO forces have identified neurosciences being weaponized and getting their armies ready for a new.
So hold on to that thought. We have a caller. Murli is calling us from Gurugram at this point in time. Murli, go on.
Yeah, thank you for pulling me in. It's an interesting discussion, particular topic. I find that you pick up topics which are not normally done by other channels. So, to my this one is, see, these Oxford and all, maybe they are the legacy they were working on, long term and all. But right now, I think we should not give too much of importance to Oxford and these kind of universities if they are doing this kind of programs, etc. Right? There are vested interests inside Oxford and other this one. I think India has grown beyond all of these guys. It's much bigger. We are much more self-confident. Actually, by doing some seminar, conferences, etc., Kashmir is not going to go anywhere. And,
Okay.
I think people of India.
All right, that's a
than all
very
of
good
this
point.
stuff, yeah.
That's a very good point. Before I take up points from Sumit Peer and Adit, let me also rope in Dr. Kohli into this. Dr. Kohli, if you're not going to be giving so much importance to the Oxfords and the Cambridge, should our politicians also, does it behoove our politicians, to go to these universities who are trying to divide us and talk about the problems that India is facing? Don't you think that's a double-edged sword?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think our politicians should now, at least put a thought behind before being celebrated there or before making statements there. In fact, if you ask me in a different perspective, Vineet, for such politicians to go and speak in such universities, I'm putting both the such in inverted commas. It suits them. The narrative they come from and the narrative which is running in the OIU, which I just spoke of. I gave it it used to be called the OU. I gave it the new name called OIU. So it suits them. It works for them because they get the right kind of platform there and the right kind of thought process which they're carrying with them. So for them, it's the right place. I think the university is spelling doom for itself. It was a very respected university. Both you and I have been to Oxford many times. I have worked with people who studied from there, and a very respected university in the past for whatever reasons. I think it is gradually losing that respect, and I think debates like these, and Oxford should not forget that most of its prestige, most of the crown that it has earned amongst one of the better universities in Europe is because of Indians. Is because of Indians who studied there, because of the Indians who made their mark across the world, whether in corporate or politics or otherwise. And if this is what Oxford has come down to, I think they're spelling doom for themselves. In fact, why Oxford? The entire United Kingdom. Look at what happened to King Charles when he went to Australia. We all know what happened.
Yes.
The big placard said, we don't want the king. Nobody, all the ceremonial heads that the king is now, none of the countries, even to smaller countries around Africa, none of them, they want the king. I think they have to realize that the days of colonialism are over. They are no more the kings of the world, but somehow they are not able to accept that our legacy of centuries is now gone. The sooner they realize, the better it is. Whereas, Vineet, I do agree that we should not give importance to what Oxford is propagating.
Okay.
We must debate Northern Ireland. We must debate Scotland. We must debate Wales. We will not debate Oxford again.
Absolutely. Sumit Peer, now on to your point.
Vineet, I wanted to make 4 quick points. The first and the most important thing is, look, when they talk about Kashmir lineage comes from Rishi Kashyap, which is at least 10,000 or more years old, right? As per even the written history. Now, for the sake of God, Pakistan was born 75 years back. Kashmir's written history is thousands of years old, and Islam was born 1400 years back. How the hell is Kashmir part of Pakistan, and how the hell does Islam rule the Kashmir? That is the question. When you were born 1400 years back, you didn't accept that a type of Rishi Kashyap. That's point number one. If Kashmiri genocide and all was untrue, I'm a living example with you. Anybody who wants to debate with me can come, and I can spend days and months debating with them. So let them come and talk to me. Point number 3. In France today, every kid going to school, 1 out of 3 has a name Muhammad. So you might see the demographics are right, but the demographics on the ground are changing at an alarming rate. I hope Macron gets it to his ears. 1 out of 3 kids which is enrolled in the France has a name Mohammed. Mr. Macron, wake up and smell coffee. After 20 or 30 years, you will not have even coffee left to smell. Now, the fourth point I want to make is, look, we are going to counter this because this is a problem which the world is facing. If we try to be politically correct, if we try to be naive, and if we try to deflect it, you see, uncontested lies for some turn to be true. We have to contest all of these things, and we have to now get into attack mode. The first thing what I request with hand folded, my hands today to the government of India is, let's walk out of this facade called Commonwealth. What the hell is this Commonwealth? Why does India need to be part of this Commonwealth? Hai kya bhai, Commonwealth? This is a dinosaurs of the this is a relic of the dinosaurs era, which we are carrying on our shoulders for nothing. What is Commonwealth? Because if we keep on doing this, the people think they have some kind of a superiority about us, and they will talk about our masla and our issues in their universities. I would urge Delhi University, I'll urge an IIT and IIM. Let's have a debate on this, on these provinces of the United Kingdom, and let's call all of us, or whichever you want to call, and maybe let's do it and call it a day. We need any uncontested
Sumit, hold on to that thought. I'll come back to you. David Vijay is calling us from Kochi. Let's listen into what he has to say. David, go on.
Hello.
Go on,
I have
David.
been seeing. Hello. Are you able to listen?
Yeah, go on, please.
I have been listening to this issue that Oxford University has done this debate. Previously, when I was working in certain Christian areas, even Ireland problem was very severe. Some even quixotic people have written on the wall, hands off from Ireland. Margaret Thatcher was the Prime Minister or something. It has gone to the heavens. Nobody has listened to that. But whatever has happened there, it is now a matter of serious concern. But stepping out of Commonwealth, I don't think it will be a drastic step. So somehow Britain should understand what it is. And even I have got one more opinion also. The opposition leader or whomsoever from here, if they go to some other countries and speak an anti-national thing, their passports should be even forfeited. Why here certain people are like that now I am seeing because of our emergence as a global power under the leadership of Narendra Modi, some other, so it will be a matter of great concern. So I am listening to the experts like Kohli sir who has said there, who has been praising Oxford and now the downtrodden situation of Oxford, everything. So let me listen rather than express my opinion. Thank you.
All right, okay. Let me rope in Adit also into this conversation. Adit, there's obviously a multitude of complex overlays when it comes to the topic of Kashmir. Even when we in India talk about the sensitivities attached to Kashmir, there is a very nuanced approach, by journalists as well as the people who understand the problem. Do you think it's immature, foolhardy, as well as irresponsible to talk about a concept, to talk about a problem that you don't fully comprehend, you don't understand, the semantics associated with it, you don't understand the people who are affected by it, you may not even know what happened to the Kashmiri Pandits in the early 90s and the late 80s, and yet you want to talk about Kashmir and look at India as some oppressor, that is doing what perhaps UK has done to almost the entire world for the better half of the last 3 centuries.
So Vineet, here is where I would like us to de-hyphenate, British polity, the British colonialism with the Oxford Union. The Oxford Union is it was set up in 1823 by the students who couldn't discuss contentious issues in the university. So it's basically a breakaway from the Oxford University in its entirety. So that is where I would like to de-hyphenate that particular perspective. The problem that we have at hand, like I said, is the social sciences divisions and the departments within universities and schools at large, which cultivate and condition young minds to think in a certain way. I myself, I'm a byproduct of such a schooling system which made us believe they conquered, but they became us. That wasn't the case. If we look at it in entirety, we know the kind of Islamic history that we've had to endure as a civilization has been anything but peaceful. It has been extremely violent, where they've desecrated our worship places. They have, looted and plundered our worship places, and they've, completely dislodged our civilizational value system at the whole. But that is not what our education system basically teaches us. It conditions us to believe that, we exist together and we've always existed together, which is a complete farce. It's a complete lie. So we need to kick that political correctness into the bin. And we need to understand that this is a problem stemming from academia. The problem is that the current government which is in place today also doesn't understand this from an academic lens, which is why we are not bringing any sort of a financial consequence to universities which harbor anti-India narratives, which platform anti-India research and anti-Hindu research. I mean, all universities, all the big universities across the Western Hemisphere are indulging and platforming anti-India narratives, and they're giving platforms to very feral activists who are basically, like the snakes in the United Kingdom, name the Khalistanis, name the Islamists. They're all being provided platform by the King's University, the King's College, by the Cambridge, by the Oxfords, the Harvards, etc., etc. So unless we understand this and we put financial implications as a government on these universities, we delegitimize them. We understand that, we make it a point that, any degrees coming from there on Indian students will not be recognized in India. I don't think we are nipping this on the bud.
Quickly, Sumit.
Vineet, I got once, I'm a Cornell alumni, and I heard that government of Qatar has given $2 billion of grant to Cornell, which is highest in the United States. I was always wondering why this is happening, and when I ask in my alumni group, they start jumping like frogs on the hot air. No politics, don't talk politics here. But Vineet, I was talking yesterday to an ex-Israeli diplomat who was also Cornell alumni, and you know what he told me? He told me Cornell University has started a course, which is, now you can do a course from Cornell University, which talks about genocide in Gaza. There's a course available. This is how $2 billion are showing their color. This is what they do with the impressionable minds. Catch them young, catch the age of 21, 22, tell them there was a genocide in Gaza. Put $2 billion there. The Qatar who funds all terrorist organizations in the world. Why do they need to fund an IBYT university? This is exactly the cost. And if you think what is happening in Oxford, nobody is funding it, let's not be fools, Vineet. That's my limited point.
Okay, Mr. Tathagata Roy, former Meghalaya governor, also with us on the program. Mr. Roy, appreciate you joining us, sir.
Yes, thank you.
So we are talking about the Kashmir issue being echoed in the chambers of the Oxford University, where it can never find a solution nor a perspective about its existence. Your thoughts?
Yes. My take is very simple. Right now, the status quo that obtains in Kashmir must not be disturbed. And particularly the Hindus who have been displaced from there in the early 1990s must be brought back. And anything that is contrary to this stand is anathema to the Indian state, and the players all over the world, they must understand it. Now, they have their own games to play, but the government of India must get tough on it. The kind of platform that the British universities or American universities are offering, these the insurrectionist groups, is just not funny, and the government of India must get tough on it.
All right, General Sudhakarji, coming to you now. Mr. Roy, appreciate you joining us, sir. Thank you so much. General Sudhakarji, quickly, sir.
Threat ignored is enemy welcomed. Do not ignore the threat. It is a new form of warfare in 21st century. India must strategize and develop a consistent and coherent kind of a vertical which should be able to effectively counter in a proactive manner such kind of discussions taking place anyway. Like Ravinder from Bangalore suggested, we must carry the battle into the enemy's battleground. Back to you.
All right, we've run out of time. Appreciate. All right. Professor Nalapat, quickly, sir. Professor Nalapat, quickly, sir.
Look. Let's not fall into a trap of bringing religion into these matters. That's exactly the trap that these people want us to fall into. Religion is, frankly, it's a question of mindset. It's a question of fanaticism. It's a question of a wrong feeling of supremacy. So I would request that we not bring religion into this kind of a discussion, and that's my point of view. Thank you for allowing me to say so.
All right, Dr. Kohli, quickly, 10 seconds, sir.
Just very quick point. Till such time that they start behaving, I think I would request Indian corporates to not recognize graduates from Oxford University for recruitment for all positions in India. That's the point I wanted to make.
Sumit, 5 seconds.
We need 5 seconds. Vineet, I went once to this Jim Corbett National Park with a friend, the hypothetical situation. When it was evening, I told my friend, I'm going back. You don't wonder the tiger will eat you up. My friend told me, I am vegetarian. I told him, well, friend, the tiger is not vegetarian, and he became history.
All right, on that note, we have to wrap up. We've completely exhausted our quota of time. Appreciate everybody who joined us and gave their point of view. We're going to continue talking about this on the other side as well. We'll be right back.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.